Hello everyone, my name is Hannah Pohl, and today I will be discussing the topic of my research design project, which is survey research, and kind of how this can be used in and outside of the classroom, and especially through administrative work. So I will be using an example later on in this video to kind of describe the steps of survey research and how this can be used. But first, let's kind of like delve into what exactly we're looking at and what exactly is survey research. So I will kind of be describing my topic through like this animation form. So I will kind of be like starting and stopping the animation form throughout to just kind of describe the project and what everything is going on, and just to give a little bit more detail. So first off, what is survey research? So survey research is collecting data and testing a hypothesis, and you are doing this through kind of questioning people's opinions or some problem or issue. So this can be done through multiple forms, and I'll kind of use some example later and describe this in more depth to kind of give everyone more of a broad idea of kind of what specifically we're looking at. But this is just kind of the definition to start off. So there are some key characteristics that are important to survey research. And right before you, they're gonna kind of play out. So what are these? The key characteristics are: you need a sample of a population. You also need to collect your data through questionnaires or an interview. So there are two different types of form that you can do through the collection process. The most common is a questionnaire, which is a written form, or you can do a personalized interview. So these do kind of have two slightly different structures to them and how they need to be formatted. The third is you need to identify the tools that you are going to be using for your survey project. So if you're going to be doing an interviews, you need to make sure you're having a space and everything for this, and also any other details that you're going to need. As well as you need to make sure that you're having a high response rate. So in kind of our textbook, it mentions that you kind of want 50% or higher to make sure that you're kind of getting a good idea or conceptual idea of, you know, what your data is saying, and is it actually answering your question, or is it kind of like a skewed sample because you don't have that many people actually responding to your survey. So the next thing that we're going to kind of discuss is the steps in the process, how to actually do a survey research. So these are just going to be the first 5. There's 8 steps into this. Sometimes a few of the steps can be taken out, but for the most part, I'm going to be describing the most important steps. So the first one is you need to state your problem. You need to have your goal set out, and it needs to be clear of what you're actually trying to accomplish. The next is, like I mentioned, you need to locate or construct your survey tools. So if you know you're having a questionnaire, you need to make sure that you're in an area with Wi-Fi. You need to make sure that you're having the tools to create the questionnaire, as well as print as many of the copies you need. And as well as if you're doing interviews, having a space to do the interviews, and as well as a recording to be able to kind of like look back, to be able to construct and look at your results. The next is you need to prepare a cover letter. So this is one that some individuals do or do not do. It really does depend. In our book, and the example it uses for survey research in the chapter, they do have a cover letter and how this looks. And whenever an administrator wants to know their staff's opinion of the administrative leadership, so they had a cover letter for this and kind of what entails in this questionnaire. The example I will be using, she will not have a cover letter, and I'll kind of describe why she didn't end up having a cover letter. So the next one is you also need to kind of co-pilot your questionnaire. So in the example of the book, the example was kind of given to higher administrative staff on what the questionnaire would look like before it was given to the actual building staff itself. I will kind of step-by-step process this in my big example. So you also obviously need to administer the questionnaire or have the interviews, and also have some type of follow-up. So the next is going to be kind of the next 3 steps and what's necessary. So also, depending on your research individuals, some might not have a follow-up depending on what form of research you are using. So the next 3 steps are obviously figuring out what everything says. What is your data telling you? And also, you need to have some type of report. You need to be able to connect the statistics or whatever findings you're having to kind of the application of your goal. And that's really important, because it's not really useful if you're just having a bunch of numbers, but it's not really connecting to anything. So next, we're going to kind of describe the two overall types of research that you can do in survey research. So the first is called cross-sectional surveying. And this is collected from selected individuals, and it's a standalone. So which means it's kind of done at one single point in time, and after it's done and taken, that's it. There's not really much like analyzing or critiquing or other formats happening inside of this survey. So sometimes this is pretty common. Other times the longitudinal one is also very helpful as well, because this one has multiple different little pieces to it and how you can do a survey research. So typically in this type of survey, you are collecting data 2 times or more. And there's also multiple different types within this type of survey, which is, like it kind of says on the screen, cohort, panel, and follow-up. So, and they all kind of serve different purposes. So cohort is involved in one population selected in a particular time. So if you were looking at all the 7th graders in Miss Johnson's Algebra 2 class, you know, in the beginning of the year, that's taken over like one particular time period. So, and that means that you can do it for all 7th graders, which means you were collecting 2 or more times, because if Miss Johnson has 3 or 4 Algebra 2 classes, this is what that represents. So then you also have panel surveying, which involves like same individuals being studied over time. So this kind of can also be confused with cohort, but this just means that you're like being very select, and the individuals that you're kind of focusing on over a selected period of time. And then we have trend. And trend is kind of defined by someone's personal traits or characteristics. So this could be like anyone that identifies as a female in, you know, Georgian high school, and kind of like some of their perceptions over a very specified goal. So also there's follow-up. Follow-up is where you are kind of comparing and contrasting against other people's already done projects, and as well as you're kind of analyzing or building on some of the work that someone has also already done, which is why you're following up. You're looking at their research and kind of continuing on. So, but right here, we'll be able to kind of see some examples. These are just very broad examples. These aren't kind of ones I'll be going very in depth with. The first one that we have is assessing the needs of parents of students who have individualized education programs. So this can be sought at in many different functions. So some schools have a lot of educational programs, some don't. And also kind of the connection between parents and the schooling system is also something that is kind of being analyzed in this specific goal. So just remember that within this type of research, you cannot really go anywhere unless you have a very specialized goal in mind. Like, what am I trying to achieve? And in this example, we're seeing parents and the schooling system's connection to individualized education programs. So, and how is it working for the parents? How is it working for the students? And kind of like understanding the needs that they need for this specific goal in mind. Next, it's also very common for within like administrative buildings and also in school districts that there's some type of professional development workshops happening. Well, this type of goal can be, are these professional developments helping parent or teachers? And is it useful, or is it just kind of like 15 minutes that doesn't really need to be taken out of a student or a teacher's time and administrative time? What type of experiences or implementation could be useful in these type of professional development workshops? These are the type of goals that is like the focus of survey research. Like, you were trying to get opinions or kind of like thoughts on a specific problem or goal. So we also have some other examples as well that you can use. So another example is, what are students' opinions of college? You know, like, what are their attitudes of going toward it? Are they going to traditional schooling? Are they going to trade school? And kind of like getting a feel of what are going to be the next steps for your students after high school. So this is something that teachers can do kind of to see like in a planning session, or this could be something that college counselors are doing, or just administrative individuals in general. And as well as another example is, are they going to be using counseling services? How did they think of the counseling services within high school, or do they even think that they will be using them when they get to college? This is another form that can be looked at as well. And this is one that might be more specialized to like how teachers can use it in their classroom, because survey research isn't just for kind of the higher up administrative staff. So something that's kind of important to understand or kind of see is that the nice thing about survey research is it's not like a typical research as we think of in this STEM field. It is more descriptive in nature. We are looking at individuals' opinions or a specific like problem or issue. And we are just creating a questionnaire or an interview that are guided to see how individuals are feeling about a specific problem or issue. So this is kind of nice because it doesn't require as much manipulation and your kind of research, because you are able to just kind of create a questionnaire guided towards what you're wanting to know. So, but to keep in mind, you are not wanting to create leading questions like, do you not think this? Or experts say this, so do you not, or do you think this? Those are kind of leading questions. Your questionnaires are supposed to be very non-biased, so that way you can get a true feel of how individuals are kind of perceiving the question that you are asking. And Burns and Groves discusses kind of the importance of survey research, and also the fact that, like, yes, it is descriptive, but it does help stimulate more analytical research. Like, for example, if you create a survey project on the attitudes of your students for college, and you're kind of seeing that there are some that are really just saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to college. I don't know if I'm going to trade school. I don't know if I'm going to what I am doing. Then you can be able to like fill out another type of questionnaire or another type of study that kind of better helps suit how you can help aid your students, or aid your educators or parents, depending on the goal of your topic. And that's something that kind of is then producing another like in-depth stimulus research project. So kind of the example I will kind of spend the rest of the video discussing is the research done by Lily R. Lowry at Georgia Southern University. So this was done at a high school in Georgia, and it had over 4,000 students, and there was about 400 or more in each grade class. And this study was given from 9th to 12th graders on high school students' perception of their high school experience thus far. Now, this research project was pretty extensive using survey research, which a lot of times they are. So within this, I will kind of be focusing on some of the very specific goals that she had set to kind of use as an example and kind of break down the importance of survey research and how it can be used. So first things first is that you have to have a goal in mind. And this was the goal that Lowry had kind of set up for her example, is that this study is intended to inform teachers and school administrators on kind of like the relevance of including students' perceptions in the school improvement process. So kind of Lowry's goal was, yes, it is important that we are getting like staff input, but depending on how she words some of these questions and the structure of this research, as we'll kind of see, depending on students' answers does mean there might need changes in the implementation process of kind of like new programs and just new methods being used in the schooling system. So the two forms I will be focusing on is, did students feel like they belonged? Did they feel safe? So Lori does ask this. She asked on a scaling system of strongly disagreed to strongly agreed. And this is very common in survey research and is typically the go-to is on a scaling system, because this way you're able to get a very clear idea of the opinions of individuals taking your questionnaire. In the book, it does describe you can do open-ended questions, but you need to be very, very specific on the goal of what this question's job is. That's why typically they recommend for it to be on some type of scaling system, so that way kind of the statistics of the project is very easy to kind of understand and analyze at the end. So looking at Lowry's example, she asked, did students feel like they belong? And as we can see, this kind of shows how students were feeling. And it was kind of mixed. So we had 10.6 students strongly disagree. They didn't feel like they belonged at all. Disagree at 16.6, agree at 51.2, and strongly agree at 21.1. So I know that these just kind of look like numbers, but in the kind of process of survey research, this comes important later down the road, which I'll kind of discuss. So, and it's also important to understand that while 51.2%, you also have 26% of your population feeling like they don't belong. So the next is, did students feel safe? 7.7 students said that they strongly disagreed. They didn't feel safe in the school at all. And then 16.1 said no, they didn't. You had 58.8 said, yes, I do feel safe. And then 17.3 said, I feel very safe. So amongst this, we'll see that students were had mixed results if they feel like they belonged. Overall, 24% of students felt like they didn't belong. Of that 24%, 8% strongly disagreed to feeling safe. Feeling safe, which is still showing that you have 24% of your population not feeling like they're safe or if they belonged. So what does this mean? Taking all of this information and kind of your survey research, where do you go from here? You have some statistics showing that 30% of students disagree to a sense of belonging, and that you have also a 24% of not feeling safe. So shown before you is Lowry's research. And it's pretty extensive, and I will only be focusing on part of table 4.2 just because the mass amounts of questions that she asked. So, and I'll be kind of breaking down survey research steps from here to kind of give a better explanation of how things go. So typically in survey research, you are not wanting to make your survey very, very long because that kind of doesn't motivate your individual taking the questionnaire. So Lowry's questionnaire is pretty lengthy, but she broke it up over time and did it during all students' study period. They had about 15 minutes to take the questionnaire, and it was broken up throughout a couple of weeks. So that way students could still find the motivation to take this survey. So as we kind of established our goal, that's the first part of the research step. In survey research, you need to state the problem, which we said, do students feel like they belong? Do they feel like they're safe? And how can the administrative staff use this in the implementation process of their schooling system? So from there, you need to construct your questionnaire and the tools. Lowry kind of combines constructing her questionnaire and also pilot testing the questionnaire in one. So she created this at the school and then sent it to all of her staff to say, do these questions seem clear? Are they defined? Can students answer these and understand what I am asking? So after she had received, staff feedback, she then went back and then edited any of her questionnaire before eventually sending it out to her students. So this is one of the examples that Lowry did not have a cover letter, that some research do have cover letters and some researchers don't have cover letters. In this case, Lowry didn't. The closest thing that she had to a cover letter is that each teacher explained that students' answers to these questionnaires can help implement like new processes in their schooling system and help them have a better perception of their experiences in high school. And that was kind of like the closest thing to a cover letter for this example. And that kind of can vary on what you believe is necessary for your research. So as I had mentioned, this questionnaire was then distributed during study time for all of the high school students. So, and they were able to fill this out. After she had gotten back the questionnaires, right before, this is what we were seeing with her kind of analyzing and writing a report of all of the work. So as we see, I feel safe and I feel like I belong to the school are the two areas that we focused on. And right above here, this shows the findings, so the report, how she's connecting the statistics to the real world application. And this is really important in survey research. If not, you're gonna just kind of be stuck with a bunch of statistics that not everyone's understanding, especially depending on kind of the large grasp of your problem or the opinions you are trying to reach. So it is really important that you are writing this report and kind of connecting the math to the implementation process. So kind of in here, Larry discusses that the fact that 24% of students don't feel safe at school is not really okay. 30% of students don't feel like they belong at the school is also not okay. So it's like, what steps or what questionnaires and other survey research projects do we need to do to figure out how we can better this for our students so that they are feeling safe and they are feeling like they belong. So ultimately, was kind of like a very long step-by-step example of survey research, but it is important to kind of understand like why each step is important and how it can be used. And in this specific example, Lowry does use the longitudinal survey because, sorry, she does not use a longitudinal survey because this was only, sorry. Lowry does use the longitudinal survey because it was taken over multiple times. It was taken over multiple periods, and it was also done with multiple populations. So she collected 2 or more of the sampling. So she would ask 1 week one section, 1 week another, and it was taken again and again. And then she had also taken this survey again towards the end of the year and the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, and then compiled it. So sorry for the confusion there, but it is a longitudinal survey because it is taken over a period of time more than once as well. So that is kind of like my project and, you know, my understanding of survey research. I hope you all found this useful, especially the step-by-steps and the characteristics of this project and how it can be implemented. I hope all of you all have a wonderful day.